Cooperation Organization summit in Tianjin. Against the backdrop of trade tensions and Donald Trump's tariffs, the meet sent out a strong message to Washington. Even as the Trump administration targets India for its ties with Russia, the bond between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Vladimir Putin is only growing stronger. From formal photo ops to casual carpooling, the two leaders showcased a friendship that's more than just diplomatic protocol. But not everyone was amused. Some watched the camaraderie with a skeptical eye. In one of the videos going viral from the summit, Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif was seen looking on with a grim expression.
1 декабря исполняется 15 лет со дня принятия совместного заявления, в котором отмечен выход наших отношений на уровень особого привилегированного стратегического партнерства. Можно уверенно констатировать, что многоплановые российско-индийские связи активно развиваются на этих принципах.
Prime Minister Modi has extended an invitation to President Putin and called for renewed peace efforts to resolve the Ukraine crisis.
हमारा करीबी सहयोग न केवल दोनों देशों के लोगों के लिए बल्कि वैश्विक शांति, स्थिरता और समृद्धि के लिए महत्वपूर्ण है। एक्सेलेंसी, यूक्रेन में चल रहे संघर्ष के विषय में हम लगातार चर्चा करते रहे हैं। हाल में किए गए शांति के सभी प्रयासों का हम स्वागत करते हैं।
President Putin said ties between India and Russia are stronger than ever.
У нас такие отношения, что я считал, что вы и так все понимаете.
हमारे इतने रिश्ते हैं कि मुझे ऐसा लगा कि आपको कोई अनुवाद नहीं चाहिए.
The Russia-India-China trio is emerging as a powerful alternative on the global stage. Not to challenge the West directly, but to offer new options for the world. With Gaurav Sawant reporting from China, Bureau Report, India Today.
All right, and Gaurav Sawant has been covering that entire summit and joins us live now from China. Gaurav, what an exciting time to be covering an SCO summit. What an iconic summit nonetheless. It will go down in history as one of those most talked about for different reasons, of course. But the question, however, is that how much of this is just optics? How much of it was just messaging? How much of it was just to sort of let Donald Trump know, and how much of it will actually translate into action on ground? Will we be able to look past our differences with China, look past our uncomfort or sort of discomfort with Russia, and actually get down to doing some concrete business?
So let's split this. That's a very interesting question. And, let's split this on two fronts. Let's talk about India-Russia. India-Russia is a time-tested partnership. It's held India in great stead in the past and over several decades. It's a time-tested partnership. So there, when you see the bonhomie between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Russian President Vladimir Putin, the fact that they walked hand in hand, the fact that they hugged, the fact that President Putin waited in his car for Prime Minister Narendra Modi to come, and in the car they had a conversation for about 40 minutes before that 45-minute long bilateral that they had with their respective teams. All of that indicates a very strong partnership, and that goes way beyond optics. Yes, the optics are all there, and yes, the optics are all intended to send out a signal to America that was very clearly trying to browbeat India to pull back from this very warm strategic partnership that India and Russia have, including telling India not to buy oil from Russia. All of that can also be done, could have been done quietly, and when there's quiet diplomacy, solutions are found. But when there's public diplomacy and the manner in which President Trump called India a dead economy at a time when we are growing at 7.8% this fiscal, it just sends out very clear signals that America is trying to bully India. And can you imagine you or I, part of a 1.4 billion strong India getting bullied by America? clearly not happening, and that message went out from Tianjin today. Of course, government sources had told us, right from the time that America had started bullying India, there is no way India will buckle under American pressure. Remember, India's ambassador to Russia had also made it very clear that's India's sovereign decision and decision of Indian businesses whether they want oil from Russia or they don't want to buy oil from Russia. It depends on prices. Now let's come to China. Very tricky, very difficult, trying to move forward in a situation that you've had multiple false starts and you have been stabbed in the back repeatedly, and yet there is no alternative but to start once again, because in case there will be these 25% additional tariffs from the United States of America, you will have to mitigate that challenge elsewhere. You need fertilizer, you need those tunnel boring machines, you need a market for your surplus, and China needs a market for it. So if there is a win-win in this, keeping your guard up at the borders, because with China, experience has taught India, and Sonal, you know that better than anyone else. This is something that India Today at India Today we've covered for very long. Each time there was a Chinese visit to India or an Indian visit to China, Chinese troops would carry out an incursion at the LAC. So there'd be a dual message from China. Sweet words from China, but unfortunate harsh action on ground. Now all of that is changing. You have your troops on ground and you're starting afresh, with both countries wanting to start afresh. Let's see if that works out. If it does, it's win-win for both. If it doesn't, then it's another lesson learned.
It is, but can I throw like a real googly at you, Gaurav, to try and understand this? We know Trump is known to change his mind. We don't know what he'll wake up with tonight, like late night for us, and perhaps there's a change in heart, there's a change in mind. In a situation like that, where does that leave RIC? And are leaders fully aware that the headlines that we are waking up to now could totally flip the next day?
Well, if they do, then India will have laddu in both our hands. And at the same time, it's not as if we are having one relationship at the cost of another relationship. What is India's policy? India's stated policy is multi-alignment. It's not as if we are a part of the Russian camp or we are a part of the American camp. We are not. We are in India's camp, and India's camp is India first. That's very clear stated policy. So as long as our interests and the American interests marry, and meet, we move forward with them. When they don't, then we have our own path. They have their own path. With Russia, it's a time-tested relationship. It's a different story. And that is why when you have, so for example, I'll give you a small example which has massive ramifications. Nuclear submarine. No country would be willing to share that kind of technology details or lease their own nuclear submarine. Russia did. And that's how we are moving forward in that direction. The S-400 system, it's held India in great stead during the recent Operation Sindoor, when a Pakistani AWACS was down 325 kilometers away in an offensive role for a defensive air defense system. That just shows how well India and Russia are tuned, and that just shows how good our Indian Air Force is. Look at with China, the message that goes out is, we want good relations with you. China wants good relations with America. It's not an anti-America or an anti-Europe bloc. Everyone wants to make money. If everyone can make money together for their countries, it's a great idea. But if anyone's going to talk down to the other person, India says that's unacceptable.
It's not an anti-America bloc. I think that's the headline that I'm taking away from what Gaurav has said. Gaurav, safe travels to you as we see you back here very soon. The Prime Minister has already taken off from China, we believe. Thanks so much for joining us and for that, round-the-clock coverage as well. Pranay is also with us. Pranay, while you look at everything that's unfolding there, and like I keep saying, what a fascinating time, really. Can we go to some of the lighter moments there as well? We saw a carpooling happening. We saw some selfies happening. We saw very strategic pull-asides while the cameras were placed happening. So, and help me understand this. Every time a pull-aside happens, or it's to a viewer, it looks like, oh, they just caught up and they shook hands. That's not the case, right? A lot of diplomacy has gone behind all of this. That who will approach, how will the handshake happen, will they sit down, that the carpool will take place. None of this is just spontaneous. All of this is scripted.
But often it happens, Sonal, that, and after having covered diplomacy for a long period of time and having witnessed these moments, there are certain raw moments as well. Even leaders are humans. They also often bound by the protocol and they want to break protocol as well. And if you can see those visuals, like, how President Xi Jinping, President Putin and Prime Minister Modi went into huddle, that even their translator found it difficult to button and how to get closer to their leaders. What are they talking about? And they shouldn't be lost in translation. There shouldn't be something, which they should miss. So those are the visuals, those are the moments, which we get to see in informal moments during the banquet, during the, when they walk the hallway. So those are the moments. And if you see closely, definitely there is a messaging. These leaders know the cameras much better than us. So they know when to pose, how to pose, what to show, what not to show. But having said that, still there are certain moments where they also show the raw, side of their personality. And if you see in the gesture, in the body language, because all this matters a lot, especially in these moments. So see, President Donald Trump, President Putin, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, see how they are talking, how close they are standing. And these are the things which one should notice, that what they must be talking about. I'm not a lip reading expert, so I can't tell you that what exactly they were discussing. But definitely the hand gestures, the kind of warmth, the proximity they are maintaining. Definitely this is something they want to give a message. And if you see this one picture today from Tianjin, of these three leaders, one Hindi caption would be most apt, especially with all pun intended to Mr. Donald Trump, that tujhe mirchi lagi to main kya karu. So that kind of thing is there because everyone has its own messaging. If you see President Xi Jinping, he wanted to show that, look, we are the alternate emerging pole. We are the one who have organized this big diplomatic event, and also 2 days after, we will be having our mighty military parade in Beijing. For that, many world leaders are coming down to Beijing. So we are the alternative new emerging pole. On the other side, President Vladimir Putin was enjoying, and he was actually enjoying this moment that the world, which on one moment of time wanted to alienate, wanted to make him untouchable, so-called international criminal
and now
court.
everybody's reaching out to him.
To shake hands with him. And see, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also. He is having, benefit of both the worlds. On one side, he just recently went to Japan. He has been invited by the G7. So we have good relation in West as well as in East. But definitely it was East versus West.
Yeah.
So this is how one can read these visuals.
Yeah. You had a Hindi phrase. I have one for you also, Pranay.
Yeah.
Heard of that song, Mera Joota Hai Japani? And it goes on to say, Sar pe lal topi Rusi.
फिर भी दिल है हिंदुस्तानी.
फिर भी दिल है हिंदुस्तानी. I think that's the song for this SCO summit. However, China doesn't feature that. Let me just say, it doesn't feature even in that song. But my question is this, Pranay. We've heard a couple of reports in the past couple of days by international papers coming out to say that there was some phone call that was trying to be, that was to be established between Donald Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. That could not happen. I know the MEA has gone ahead to say that has denied this, has said that this never even took place, but the Western world has caught up to it. Is this, as of this moment, do we have any idea of how United States is responding to RIC?
Sonal, let me start my answer with the famous phrase of Lord Palmerston, who was the British Prime Minister, and who once said that there are no permanent enemies, there are no perpetual friends, there are only permanent and perpetual interests for every country. But, in this context, President Donald Trump or United States also knows that this is not for the first time this RIC grouping has met. Definitely they did meet after a long period of time. And after that, the last picture of this RIC RIC meeting took place in December 2018 in Buenos Aires on the sidelines of the G20. After that, there was a Jai meeting. Jai meeting as in when President Donald Trump was there and Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was the Prime Minister of Japan. At that point of time, there was a meeting of US, of Japan, America and India, and that was acronymed as Jai. So now, now Again, there is a picture of RIC. We are yet to see that how these countries want to take it forward, but definitely in terms of messaging, it is important.
All right, Pranay, we've spoken about everything that's happening diplomatically, but let's speak about some visuals which are telling a very different story, right? Now, let's look at a couple of visuals that we have taken out for our viewers. But remember the context here. Let's quickly tell that as well. Now, in a world that is split between East and West, India is walking a very tight rope, a very tight diplomatic rope. The SCO summit in China's Tianjin is witnessing a rare bonhomie, like we said, but we are also, are we missing something in between of these handshakes, in the laughs, in the hugs? Often, a body language tells us the real story of what's really going on. So we pulled out the 5 most talked about moments, the top 5 moments from SCO, and then we'll decode how it actually phased out for everybody. Let's play out video number 1. All right, so that's video number 1. In that, what do you see? It's the one that will be the headlines in your papers, will be the big picture in your papers tomorrow morning. It's what West is also capturing. It's Prime Minister Modi, President Putin, President Xi Jinping, also all of them sharing smiles. We've got a lot of finger pointing, making a point, very casual conversation as well. So what's really happening there? And I'm told we have a body language expert with us on the phone line as well, to try and understand and decode this. So, can I get a confirmation if we have him?
Yes, I'm there, very much there.
Oh, great to have you, sir. If you can see that first visual over there, and I just want our viewers also to take it in for a minute. They walk in, and then there are a lot of translators, of course, all around them. They're trying to understand. But it looks like for most of the time that they don't need translators. A lot of communication is happening directly as well. Is that what you are noticing here as well?
Because in this meeting, Modi ji rarely laughs that loudly in India. If you may agree with me on that wide laugh and the finger gestures and trying to convince Mr. Jinping of a joke. Now here, Mr. Putin is definitely taken in by the joke, and he also extends his hand, like in confirmation, and he's trying to explain the joke to Jinping through translators who bend forward. But Jinping is not, smiling. When you smile, your pupils dilate. Of course, we are seeing this picture from a little side angle, and therefore we are not able to, because during the last moment of the joke, some person comes in between. So unless I'm missing that, apart from that, I don't see any much.
Lunging forward, when you're interested in a joke or something, your body moves forward. So that is missing. But as far as Mr. Modi is concerned, I think he's pulled off
languages concerned, because considering the immense strained relations with China in the recent past, especially after we came to know that they have a role in the Pahalgam attacks in financing Pakistan. So after that, to cut off this kind of body language and also be smiling, laughing, I think it's very good. But the Chinese are very sharp, strong nuts to crack. It's not so easy. And you're true that Jinping doesn't smile often. You have to see the characteristics of a person and his profile for a sufficiently long time. But if I might remind you, during his initial days when Mr. Modi visited China, when he was at the museum and he was visiting their religious places and also inspecting the statues, feeling the textures of the soldiers, the relationship that time was very good. And even when he came to Gujarat, he was sitting on the swing and spinning the charkha. That kind of body language, if you were like to compare it with today's just short meeting, I would say there is a lot of difference for a body language expert.
Hold on to what you're saying, because I want to move in very quickly to the next video as well. And let's play that out for our viewers. Video number 2. And this one is interesting because this is the Prime Minister shaking hands with Xi Jinping and his wife. We'll immediately compare now how this handshake happened versus how it was with President Putin. So quickly, your notes first on what's happening here.
This particular picture, Mr. Modi, from a distance of 4 feet, about 4 feet, he extends his hand forward, which is again a very positive language. But the time where the handshake is there is
seconds compared to the 13-second handshake with Putin. And here it's very formal. It's like you would do, a diplomat would do on a world stage, exchanging just polite smiles, no grinning of teeth, etc. With Putin, the thing is very different, because when he meets
So,
Mr.
Kapil,
Putin,
one second. We'll go to the Putin picture in just a minute. I want to quickly bring in Pranay as well and get his understanding. Pranay, to be honest, there were 2 handshakes that happened. This is the official one, and there was one where he met him during the bilateral, right? I found that was also very interesting. We saw the Prime Minister come out in all white, like the messenger of peace, if one can call him that. He came out in all white, he came in, he shook his hand, and while you saw the Chinese premier being very matter of fact, one could see that there was a lot of keenness to make it work from our end. Is that a fair analysis?
Definitely, Sonal. And if you have noticed that white attire, you would have also noticed the saffron pocket sheaf he was holding. So definitely, there was a different warmth. Here, what we are witnessing right now is a formal event. It's like he is welcoming all the other leaders as well. So there is a paucity of time, this is a very brief moment, and ultimately, President Putin also, President Xi Jinping also joins the banquet. So, one should not read too much into the brevity of this moment or the handshake here.
Right. Let's also move on to the next one then. And let's bring out the third video that we've picked out for our viewers today to analyze. And this is the one where Prime Minister Modi meets President Putin. Okay, there you go. Very warm. A lot of handshakes. In fact, this is not the only time they met. There is a lot that happened before, after. Look at the repeated handshake that's happening. It's firm. It's letting the world know as well. And there are smiles that go here to here. Let me bring on our guest as well to try and see how this is to be decoded. Anupam, Kapil, go ahead. What were your observations here?
pretty long handshake. It's about 13 seconds, and Mr. Modi's left foot is pointing to Mr. Putin, who's standing absolutely straight. It shows that Mr. Modi is very much interested and eager to further this friendship. He's smiling, he's excited. So I feel that Mr. Putin is looking straight, and there's not much to give away, because even Mr. Putin is he's not a very expressive person. If you see what happened in Alaska with Trump, there's not much. I mean, it's very formal. They, these people know how to hide their.
Right, Pranay. Comparison between the handshake between Russia and China. A comparison for you?
Different gestures, but definitely there was a warmth being expressed by the host here. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who was meeting President Vladimir Putin. If you see the gesture, like he was holding President Xi Jinping's hand closer to his body. So definitely there was an eagerness, there was an attempt to show that warmth, and we have seen the hug pictures of Prime Minister Modi and President Putin as well from the SCO summit venue, and we have seen that whenever Prime Minister Modi and President Putin met, be it in Moscow, be it in any other place, be it in New Delhi, there had been a warm hug, and there was an exchange of pleasantry between both these leaders and the mutual admiration as well. But as Kapil was pointing it out, that one should not forget that he was meeting an ex-KGB agent. So President Putin knows how to conduct and how to hide his emotions as well. But here you could see him smiling, as he also mentioned during his conversation with Prime Minister Modi. That,
but talking about hiding emotions, let's go to the next video where a lot of emotions did not go hidden at all. Let's play out the next video of the video and a zoom in that has been caught of the Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and his expression as he sees Prime Minister Modi and President Putin walking by. There's a zoomed-in version of this picture as well that speaks 1,000 words, really. But go ahead, Pranay, very quickly on what did you make of this one?
Obviously, he must be looking at what might be transpiring between President Putin and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, because whenever India-Russia comes together, you have products like BrahMos or S-400. So definitely Pakistan has many reasons to be concerned and worry about. And we have also seen those pictures where, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif walked up to, he almost like rushed to shake hands with President Putin. Also during the banquet, the way he went up to President Putin, held his hand, and he wanted to show that extra warmth to President Putin.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the last one. And this, I really want to understand, how did the diplomats react, if you have any insight, Pranay, on this one? These things don't happen randomly. Taking a random car ride with another world leader, that has to be orchestrated. I'm sure there were some conversations that happened behind the scenes here. I'm sure there was a camera placed to capture this precise moment as well. So tell me what's happening.
Sonal, let me tell you with this thing that, from my sources there, I got to learn that this happened actually impromptu. President Vladimir Putin and Prime Minister Narendra Modi were scheduled to meet in the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Tianjin, and they were supposed to go for that meeting, but President Putin decided to stay back. He waited for Prime Minister Narendra Modi for a good 10 minutes, and he offered Prime Minister Narendra Modi and said that, why don't you come with me if we are going to the same place? Then they traveled together, and that conversation was unscheduled conversation that lasted for a good 50 minutes, even after when they reached the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. Long, conversation they had during in the car. And this is the Urus car, the Russia-made car, which was given to President Putin by the Chinese side for this, for his, stay there. And he offered Prime Minister
Pranay has a fun story that the car actually that was given for Prime Minister Modi was actually made in China. That's a story for another day, but you can catch that on India Today website as well for more. We're going to slip into a very quick break. Coming up on the other side, we're looking at Delhi now and what we are battling with air pollution. If you thought it was a case for only the winters, the next story will make you believe otherwise. Come right back for what's causing air pollution even in summer and monsoon.
I choose a world where we dream, and the limit is the sky. And this world is my home where I'm living my best.
Mindfully crafted home decor fabrics. Sansar, a D-Decor brand. Live consciously.
Moto G96 5G. All eyes on you.
Hi, here are the top headlines. Presented by Motorola. PM Modi tells Putin, India and Russia stand for global peace. Supreme Court rejects plea on ethanol-free petrol. E20 sales continue. Tejasvi Yadav slams Nitish Kumar, says people want original CM.
G96 5G. All eyes on you.
Hi, here are the top headlines. Presented by Motorola. PM Modi tells Putin, India and Russia stand for global peace. Supreme Court rejects plea on ethanol-free petrol. E20 sales continue. Tejasvi Yadav slams Nitish Kumar, says people want original CM.
Welcome back. On to our health focus on 5 Live. Delhi's toxic air isn't just a winter problem. If you thought it was limited to a few months, well, think again. A new study reveals that a hidden threat lurking in the skies, known as microplastics, that's what's causing our air to be really polluted, not just in winter, but in summers and shockingly in monsoon as well. These tiny plastic particles, invisible to the naked eye, are now present all year round, even during the monsoon. They're hitching rides on dust, wind, pollution, right into our lungs and different body parts. Experts are saying Delhiites inhale thousands of microplastic particles every year. And what exactly is the reason for this silent invasion? What can we do to stop it from happening? And what exactly happens when this plastic enters our body? Take a look at this next report.
We are so used to this thick, choking smog that engulfs Delhi every winter. The kind that turns sun into a faint orange blur, makes your eyes and throat burn, and sends AQI reading into the red zone.
But now, environment observers are surprised at how bad the air quality is even in the summer and shockingly during the monsoon too. According to data from the Central Pollution Control Board, the CPCB, Delhi's average AQI in May of 2024 was 223. In June, it was 179, both well into the moderate to poor category. And monsoon? Well, that isn't much clearer either. July averaged at 96, August at 72, barely straddling the satisfactory air quality. Shocking, right? This is far from what the WHO recommends. The limit there is just 50 for your lungs and your body to seem easy. So what's the reason? Microplastics.
Microplastics, the tiny plastic particles less than 5 millimeter in size. We have heard of them in spreading through our oceans. But a latest study conducted by scientists from the Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology in Pune took samples in the summer and winter months. And what they found was a total of 2,087 microplastics across all particulate samples. And we shouldn't be surprised. Plastic production has grown from 1.5 million tons in 1950s to 403 million tons in 2022. The increased manufacture of single-use plastics has led to the rise in garbage found in terrestrial and aquatic habitats due to inefficient waste management. The thing with microplastic is these particles are so small that they can easily become airborne, hitching a ride on dust, vehicle emissions, or even the wind. Such has been their infiltration in our surroundings that they are found in human brains, in placentas, and even in the bellies of fish deep in the ocean. You might think of summer as a time of clearer skies, but in Delhi, it's the opposite. Intense heat breaks down large plastic debris into smaller microplastics, increasing their concentration in the air. Warmer weather means more people are outside, leading to higher inhalation rates of airborne particles. Summer winds can carry microplastics from industrial areas and landfills into urban centers, spreading pollution over wider areas. You think monsoon would wash away pollutants, but instead, it can spread them further. Rainwater, while it may remove some surface dust, it can also resuspend microplastics, carrying them into water bodies and even back into the air. Storm water can pick up microplastics from roads, construction sites and waste dumps, redistributing them across the city. Though no safe threshold for inhaling microplastics has been established, the study warned that constant exposure to these tiny materials could lead to increased case of bronchitis, pneumonia, lung inflammation, and even cancer. Delhi's microplastic exposure is concerning. Adults inhale between 5.3 to 15.4 microplastic particles daily. This translates to 1,935 to 5,621 particles per year. In comparison, this is higher than even cities like Mexico City, but lower than indoor exposure levels in places like Scotland. This is why this needs attention. Microplastics are often overlooked in pollution discussions, but their pervasive presence and potential health risks make them a critical issue.
So, what's the bottom line here? Well, Delhi's air quality isn't just a winter problem. Delhi had 209 days in 2024 where AQI was just below 200. Its best count since 2018, outside the COVID year, remember. But still, it had no good air days. No air day which was under the WHO limit. Microplastics are making every season hazardous. It's time we recognize this invisible threat and take collective action to protect our health and our environment. Sonal Kapoor for India Today. So what's happening here? What do the presence of microplastics in our body do to us? And also, how can we limit it in the environment? We've got Vimlintu Jha join us from the environmental side to sort of give us an overview of how to actually control this, and also with us Dr. J.C. Khilnani. He's the chairman of the PSRI Institute of Pulmonary. Let me come to you, Dr. Khilnani, first. What exactly is happening to our bodies when these microplastics enter? I was watching a report by NYT earlier this week where they said that even when they were picking up breast milk samples, they were picking up placenta samples, they were picking up a lot of other things, the person who was doing the entire detailed report said now it's a given that microplastics are going to be found in each part of our body. So should we be scared? Should we be worried? What is the way to limit this?
So, Sonal, we are actually terrified, not scared, but it's nothing new that we did not know. This study is an eye-opener, but we always knew that plastics in city of Delhi and all over would be causing havoc. Unlike the air pollution, which leads to immediate sore throat, coughs, smarting of eyes, asthmatics will have attacks, they'll come to the emergency, there'll be more ICU admission, more ventilator. Particles will act slowly, actually. And this is absolutely man-made, absolutely man-made, and you have already shown in your reports. It does enter through the lung as well as in the gastrointestinal tract, because what we eat, what we drink, don't we find utensils saying they are micro-safe? They are plastic things. Just because it's written in the micro-safe, we conveniently heat our food. That's only a simple thing. Don't worry, we are not drinking water in the plastic bottle thinking that, we are having a safe water. And what about buying vegetables and all those things in a plastic, polythene bags? Where do they go ultimately? Ultimately, they go into our water, they go into our food, they go into our agriculture. What it does to us, something are known, something is not known. We know that it causes.
Okay, let's quickly fix that line with Dr. Khilnani. Let me go to Vimlintu Jha then. Vimlintu, the discussion on air pollution has become the discussion on plastic. Who would have thought that this day would come? But here we are. Discussing how plastic, every piece of it, is now responsible for our bodily health or our physical health as well. Are you surprised at all by this study, or this is something that has been spoken about?
So, Sonal, I think there's been several studies on this. Of course, this one is very specific to Delhi, and therefore it's very, very alarming. And also the reason because Delhi already is a toxic city in that sense. It's a city that already has such alarming levels of air pollution. And, all this while, there were these studies that were actually done in London and Paris, which relatively, or perhaps is much, much better than the data points that we actually have vis-a-vis air pollution of Delhi. Also, all this while, every time we spoke about microplastic, largely we were talking about marine litter. We were actually talking about our waterways getting contaminated by microplastic and therefore our entire food chain in that sense. This, in many ways, is for the first time asking us those difficult questions that all this while, if you were thinking that it's only dust that is responsible for almost 30% of your air pollution, or perhaps vehicular emissions, which is responsible for almost 40 to 50% of the air pollution. Imagine if there's so much of garbage all around. And by the way, Sonal, this study was done in this area called Lodi Road. And that's all the data points have actually come from one of the cleanest areas of Delhi. Yes. Imagine if a study like this was actually done in Anand Vihar or perhaps in Bhalaswa or in some other neighborhood which was not as posh, as rich, as maintained, as plastic-free or plastic sore-free as Lodi Road in that sense. So it's almost a great study, of course, but imagine reality of this study that we're talking about. But the main point for all of us here is that when we know that there's a study almost which has a government stamp or an academic stamp, also say, for example, an Indian educational research study, because, all this while, if it was a Lancet or someone else telling us, then we thought that this was perhaps an international propaganda to shame Delhi in that sense. Here we have our own researchers and scientists and the scientist community telling us that our air actually has microplastic, and air of Lodi Road has microplastic, and through the year, and not just in winter in that sense. And interestingly, this study also talks about the fact that most of this transmission, this microplastic, or the reason why microplastic is able to go from point A to point B is because it carries largely through dust particles and, of course, through other vehicular emissions and other things. Now, therefore, what are the action points? What are the key takeaways?
Just hold on to that. Just hold on to that, Mr. Jha, because I want to, when it comes to plastic, the conversation is not an easy one. While you were speaking, we were running graphics of what constitutes to microplastics. And I'll request my producers to play that graphic up again, and it'll tell you the composition that the study also said. It said about 40% of it was coming in from polyester and the rest of the stuff, right? Now, these are in your clothes, these are in your bags, these are in the curtains that you put in your house, these are in the bottles that you use in your tiffin. Once you start looking at those figures, it feels as if this is a lost cause. It feels as if there is just no way in which we can escape it.
No, we should, because there's a difference between indoor microplastic or indoor air contamination and outdoor air contamination.
Explain that.
The clothes that we actually wear, and the microplastic that it carries versus and the food that we eat is one thing. But right now, most alarming, the data that we're talking about is transmission through wind or transmission due to heat. And a lot of that is attributed to outdoor this thing. So at the end of the day, when we talk about who has to therefore stop this menace, where does it actually stop and what are those action points? It has to be somewhere. First of all, do we even measure it in our country in terms of our air quality indicators or air quality monitors that we actually have in Delhi? And Delhi has the most amount of air quality monitors, and other towns don't even have so-called landfill management, or in fact, many cities don't even have a landfill. Imagine the plight of microplastic or open burning of plastic and contamination of our waterways and our airways in that sense. So it's a very grim situation. I think one of the first things that we need to do is that make microplastic, like right now, we look at PM 2.5 and PM 10, and only these two parameters as main parameters of air quality measurement or / assessment. And therefore we will, and by the way, there's PM 2.5 is too big a particulate matter that we talk about. Globally,
this is PM1.
Things have evolved to 0.5 to 0.25 in that sense. Because, at the end of the day, PM10 is big, PM 2.0 is smaller, and PM 0.5 and 0.25. And here we're talking about microplastic, which is 5 mm and 0.5 mm and lesser, and nanoplastic. Like right now, we talk about microplastic, and there's something called nanoplastic also, and this is one study. And therefore, what does the government of our day derive out of this study is very, very important, both from an environment point of view and public health point of view. I'm sure Dr. Saab will tell you, and Dr. Saab has been talking about the impact of air pollution on our children and the elderly. but it's the air pollution impact is a composite of, when we say, why does cancer occur because of lung infection or air pollution, is primarily because of a lot of these toxins, which are not even measured / assessed by our air quality monitors. And therefore, there's no air quality monitoring / and therefore mitigation regime that we have in the country.
This seems like a doomed conversation for me, frankly. I don't know where we can even begin. But we're going to mull on that for a little while I go to Dr. Khilani one more time. Dr. Khilani, I don't think a lot of people even understand the concept of air pollution during summer and monsoon, which is why we're bringing out the story. People think abhi to bahut acha mausam ho raha hai. Only till you get down to, like Vimlendu is saying, that A, it's not recorded, and B, then you ask yourself, why are there so many infections happening? Then you ask yourself why people are falling sick more frequently and for longer durations. Then you have to ask yourself questions like why in the summer people are breaking down. Then you have to ask yourself why so many people are having strokes, etc. Have you seen a direct relationship between air quality going bad and patients in your hospital across, say, gender and across age barrier? Is that something that you're seeing in your hospital?
Yeah, there is something called short-term effect and long-term effect. The short-term effect we see during the October, November and December, when we have more patients with pneumonia, more patients with viral infection, more patients in the ICU, more patients on ventilator. But I want to bring another issue. Why 40% of the cancers or 50% of the lung cancers are occurring in non-smokers? Well, I was studying 90-95% of cancers used to occur only who used to smoke. Why there is the cancer registry of India shows that there are more cancers of the breast, more cancers of the female reproductive system. Why there is higher level of infertility? If you go into all these causes, the toxins in our blood and which goes through the air as well as to the food. Now, when we talk about plastics, it's not only the plastics. When the plastic is burned, there are a lot of elements like zinc, aluminum, silicon, and
all of that is becoming this really toxic cocktail that all of us are constantly breathing in.
It affects our endocrine system. Don't we see 50% of our women are taking thyroxine, which was not there before? And this is everywhere, including the breast milk, contains these toxins, including the plastic. So there has
Sir, I
to
have
be
last few minutes. I'm so sorry I'm interjecting. I have last few minutes and I really want to get some solutions from Vimlendu here. Vimlendu, like I said, I have my air purifier on in my house throughout the year now, but not everybody does that. In studios, in cars, etc. You can't live in or constantly with a mask on your face all year round. So what can a common man do, understanding fully well what is happening? Very quickly.
Sonal, two things, Sonal. One is we can never have private solution to a public problem. Don't look for a private solution for a public problem because you'll be doing great disservice to it, because that's what we've been doing. We've been, when our water got terrible, we actually fix these ROs and things. When our air is bad, we're putting air purifiers. The other is it's a myth. You can't be walking with a cylinder of a clean air in a playground or in a cinema hall or on the road in that sense. I think it's high time that we have advocacy around it. We have those measures. And when we know that the sources of plastic, and we also know methods of safe disposal of plastic, when we so-called on paper already have a law banning single-use plastic, where the hell is this plastic coming from if there's a ban that exists on ground?
Yeah. We'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you both, Vimlendu Jha and Dr. Khilani, for joining us. This is not the last we've heard of this conversation just yet. Promise to bring it up and keep underlining this issue more and more. But let's move on to some more news. Ahead of the festive season, the prices of gold have touched an all-time high, with the rupee has fallen for a record low. The rate of gold per 10 gram has crossed 1,04,000 mark for several parts of the country. But according to analysis, gold prices may see even higher swings later this week. Here's a report.
Even as Prime Minister Narendra Modi was creating headlines in the Chinese showpiece city of Tianjin, grabbing global attention as he met Chinese President Xi Jinping. Full optics at the time of shifting geopolitics. Back home, India's economic numbers gave markets plenty to talk about. A day after GDP numbers shocked economic observers, buying returned to the Dalal Street, gold and silver hit a record high and the rupee slipped to a record low. It started on Friday with GDP numbers putting the country's economic growth at its fastest pace in 15 months. The services sector led the way from IT to financial services, while agriculture showed resilience that few expected. Huge government spendings helped. Economists also point to front-loading of exports ahead of new US tariffs, which added momentum to growth. Meanwhile, precious metals, gold and silver, hit record highs as tariff uncertainties, coupled with festive season demand, pulled the buyers in. The yellow metal is seeing a surge in safe haven demand. Central banks across the world are also piling up on gold. In India, a weak rupee contributed to the rise as well. Gold crossed the 1,04,000 mark per 10 grams for the first time in Delhi spot market, with October futures close to 1,06,000 mark. Silver, which has been placed in the critical minerals list by the US, leaped past the 1,20,000 rupees per kilo mark, up nearly 6,000 rupees in a single day.
Particularly when things are not going great, when there are earnings downgrades or there is uncertainty around the world, this is one segment which, in my opinion, will hold up relatively better off. So while one is not giving a directional view on precious metals, I think in the asset allocation for investors who are listening onto this show, the allocation towards these two asset classes, which are equities and precious metals, should certainly be higher on a structural basis than what it has been in the last 5 years.
But not all the headlines were positive. The Indian rupee slipped to a record low against the US dollar, tracing slide that began on Friday. The rupee slipped to an all-time low of 88.33 to the dollar before recovering at the end of the trade. Analysts say the Reserve Bank of India is letting the Indian currency take its own course, with the fall likely to give relief to exporters facing tariff headwinds. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
All right, so what plans do you have for Diwali? Write in to us with all your feedback and perhaps we can bring you more reports for that. For now, that's all we could wrap up in this edition of 5 Live. Up next is Super 6 with Akshita Nandagopal, where they're discussing political tension soared with BJP protests and Congress pushing back. The hunt for the truth in the Dharamsthala continues. Stay tuned on the other side.